Welcome everyone to the Sports Roll Daily Fantasy Podcast. I have Matt Dengler with me, and today's Monday, May 23rd, and we are going to be building another GPP single entry lineup. And this is the $12,000 Monday MLB bunt contest. So I think, as always, we're throwing in one lineup, and so is everyone else. So we have roughly an equal chance of placing and not placing. So Matt, one, how are you? And two, what pitchers are you looking at today?
One, I'm doing better. Finally starting to feel a little bit more healed. But
Mhm.
two, I guess there's the obvious and the less obvious today. Kershaw is the obvious.
Yeah.
He's on his historic run of 10 strikeout games. He's pitching complete games every other game, and he's not facing a very good opponent. So it's a nice situation, and he's obviously my top pitcher if we can afford him. I think Cueto's an interesting pivot as well, because in his last two games against the Padres, he's pitched complete games and I think put up 60 and 72 points. He's had some strikeouts, and they have been striking out a lot.
Yeah.
They did beat up on the Dodgers pitching a little bit, but the Dodgers pitching is not the level that Cueto is. And they also played like 28 innings over the last 2 days, so I think he's a good option that could potentially put up as many points as Cueto or as Kershaw with a little bit lower price, but still a second option.
Yeah. Do you think it's worthwhile for us to just roster Kershaw first, and then maybe if we need a little bit more flexibility on the hitters end, we could just slot in Cueto at the end if it's worthwhile?
Sure.
Okay.
I think definitely Kershaw, and if we can keep him in and not switch, then that would be great.
Okay.
I think he's worth it. I'll throw in two more lower options in case people decide not to pay up. I like Gio Gonzalez a lot. He had a great game against the Mets last time. The Mets don't hit left-handed pitching well, and they strike out a lot against left-handed pitching. He's been better. His walks are down. His strikeouts are also down, but the walks are down enough that it makes up for that. And his control has been so much better. And I like him a lot today.
Yeah.
And I guess the second other guy is, I say this every week, but I like Rich Hill. He's always a good option in GPPs because of his crazy strikeout numbers. And he's not somebody I'm going to play, but I could see the reasoning behind it because Seattle's a good team.
Yeah.
But targeting high strikeout pitchers against good teams is something that some experts like, and I'm not going to do it. I see the reasoning.
Yeah, so for me, I actually would have said Taijuan Walker is a good option just because he is also one of those high strikeout guys with a lower ERA. But Seattle is coming off of, I think, a 3-game sweep of the Reds, so that's a promising thing as well. But they are going up against Rich Hill, who is a lefty, and Cano is a lefty, and Charlie Blackmon on that team.
Rockies.
Yeah, so he's not on the team, but there's a couple of lefties in the Seattle lineup that I'm a little bit hesitant about. But Leonis Martin had a good series. Franklin Gutierrez had a good series.
A lefty.
Yeah, Seager's a lefty. So there are potential issues where lefty-lefty matchups could be easier for Rich Hill to get through than Taijuan Walker would have, because a lot of Oakland's best hitters are also lefties, so they can smash him, Walker. Like Stephen Wood is a lefty. Josh Reddick is also a lefty, and then Coco Crisp is a lefty too. So, and then Chris Davis is a righty who can hit for power, and so is Semien. So, a weird Oakland lineup to get through for Walker. So I do agree that Rich Hill is the better option tonight if you're going against those two. And at 9,600, it's not a bad option, and it's enough where you can justify paying for Rich Hill versus Johnny Cueto. Like the gap between those two is a little bit further along, so it is a distinctive choice. Like, I want Rich Hill is a good thing to say versus you can pay like 400 more and get to Cueto, which is not the case here. What do you think about Lackey against St. Louis, though? Because Lackey's one of those guys that just, in the past, I just have a bad like confirmation bias against him where I just don't think he's a good pitcher, and then all of a sudden he does well, and then I kind of try to not pay attention to that. But what is going on with John Lackey today?
He's a good pitcher. He's pitched well. But I will never play a pitcher against St. Louis this year. They've done too well, especially against right-handed pitching, for me to consider it. I tried one time. I thought maybe, because they don't hit left-handed pitching great, but then they've stacked their lineup with right-handed bats, and scored like 10 runs. So I'm not going to target St. Louis. I think they have the most runs scored in the majors right now, and that's pretty impressive when the likes of the Red Sox and the Cubs are out there.
Mm-hmm. So yesterday, we didn't fill out one of these entry lineups for the sports roll, but you and I had a head-to-head, and you picked one of the St. Louis pitchers. Was it Jaime Garcia?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he didn't do too well, and Arizona Diamondbacks, who he was pitching against, they put him through the ringer for like 4 or 5 runs, I think, and he ended up leaving after 2.1 innings. So today, is it a good time to target Adam Wainwright, or just stay away from him and actually stack the Cubs against him?
Same mentality for the Cubs, because the Cubs have a top 5 runs scored, and they actually strike out the second least in the entire majors, which is just a terrible combination for a pitcher.
Yeah.
So while Wainwright has been showing signs of he might be back to his getting close to something near his old form, I still would never play anyone against the Cubs.
Yeah. So another guy that I was thinking about is Ian Kennedy, who, usually we don't talk about him in the good sense, but Ian Kennedy of the Kansas City Royals, he's going to be going up against Minnesota. Minnesota is a team that likes to strike out a lot as well, and righty, lefty, like the toughest guy on Minnesota is Joe Mauer, and Mauer actually hits better lefty-lefty than he does righty-lefty, which is what Kennedy has in this matchup. So with Mauer out of the way, and then you have like Nunez is also on that team, like Clough and Brian Dozier's on the team. So it could be a rough outing for Kennedy, but I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. So look into Ian Kennedy. He's had a couple of rough starts like in between, but for the most part, he's been 30 to 50 point kind of guy for the most part. So maybe give him a look as well. But
I like him.
Yeah, for now, we'll just roster Kershaw and move on to catcher. Who are your sort of choices for today in terms of catchers?
Didn't give us much today.
Yeah.
Not a great day for catcher. I guess a couple stand out as fine plays. Real Muto against a lefty is always a reasonable play.
Yeah.
Again, not somebody that I'm like, wow, we have to get him in our lineups, but he's been cold. Matt Moore he's pretty cheap now. He should be leading off. He tends to lead off against left-handed pitching, and anytime you can get a catcher leading off, that's a good thing, because they get so many more at-bats that way rather than the 7th, 8th, 9th that a lot of catchers hit.
Yeah.
He also has power. He's had a good season so far. He hasn't hit a lot of home runs, but he has that ISO that you look for. He's okay. He's a good option. Another guy that's an okay option is Yan Gomes.
Yep.
He's facing a terrible pitcher. He's not a lefty-righty matchup, but Eric Johnson is not a good pitcher. He's a minor league talent. He's basically just filling a spot at this point.
Yeah.
But Gomes is a somewhat decent hitter who hits for power, and it's near the top of the lineup, 6th to 5th area. And again, I don't like catcher at all, but these are people that are cheap and not going to cost us a ton, so we can spend up a little bit elsewhere.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you have any other
Yeah,
suggestions?
so one last thing on Yan Gomes, is that in a hitter's park, he does really, really well. So, like, you look at here in Minnesota versus Minnesota, so they would be in Cleveland, which is a hitter's ballpark. He had a home run for 2 straight games, and then he went to Cincinnati, or he stayed at home, and then Cincinnati came into town, and he did really well against those guys as well. So Cincinnati and Minnesota don't have the best of pitchers right now, and I think the team he's going to be facing today, the White Sox, they usually have good pitchers in Rodon and Quintana and Chris Sale, but those guys are not going to be pitching today. It's going to be some gas can of a dude named Johnson. So I feel like we should go up against a guy named Johnson and just, put Yan Gomes if we only have $2,700 to spend. But somebody that I thought would be a decent option was Victor Martinez. He is going to go up against Vince Velasquez, who does get strikeouts by the dozen, it seems like, every game, but Martinez can switch on the batters, so like he can hit lefty righty here and it can work out. And Velasquez is one of the major reasons why the Phillies are still somehow at the top of that division when they have no right to be. But so he is a part of a devastating pitching staff. But given that, I think still it's not a bad idea to roster Victor Martinez at only 3,000 because their home run potential is always there for him. But all the other top guys like Molina against Lackey, that could be something I look at, but probably won't happen. Posey going up against non-hitters friendly park in San Francisco. That's not something that I want to really target. Matt, I know you've been targeting Wilson Ramos of the Nationals recently, and I don't think we'll be rostering him today, but what makes you kind of pull the trigger on him recently?
I really like him against lefties. He actually faced two lefties in a row, and I played him both times. He hits sixth or seventh. He hits for a lot of power against lefties, and he had good games. I had the 12.7 and the 18.1 game.
Yeah.
So that was the really nice benefit. I used him largely as part of a Nationals stack because they've been good against left-handed pitching, and they're not very expensive. I really like Jason Worth, and I like Michael Taylor as well. Ryan Zimmerman's another guy that I really like against lefties. So any of those guys, but he kind of fits that mold, and he hits well against lefties, but pretty horribly against righties.
Okay. So we should stay away from him. So for me, I think looking at the bottom of a catcher's list is not the optimal thing to do. So do you want to just hedge our bets on Yan Gomes and kind of save our cost here?
Sounds good to me. I mean, decent option.
Yeah, and we should point out, by the way, like normally I would go up to the weather tab and like just check out all the weather and see what's going on in all the games and stuff. But FanDuel, the geniuses that they are over there, like they decided to have a little indicator over here now that tells you if it's going to rain or if it's cloudy or sunny and all that stuff. So just, you don't have to be flipping tabs all the time. You can just look at it here and just say that Victor Martinez is in a sunny environment, or if you know what the park is, like if it's a dome, then you're going to be fine and those kinds of things. So this isn't super helpful for me today to like just make my own roster, but I think as we go through these today, we're not going to be able to go to the weather all the time because it's right there. But as we move on to first base, I want to ask you a trivia question, Matt. Of all the eligible leaders of all time on base percentage, who of today's players do you think has the highest one in their career?
First base players?
Of first base players, yeah. And the guy's name is on this list somewhere. Who do you think it is?
How many at-bats? Because Byung-Ho Park has a ton of
a minimum of 1,000 career at-bats. Okay. I would say at least been in the league for 5 years.
It's not Pujols. I would say Miguel Cabrera. I mean,
you wouldn't be wrong. Like he's in the top 100 of that list, but the guy that's actually on the list is Joey Votto at number 18. He has a 420 on base percentage. That's like a 420 crazy. Is Miguel Cabrera's best in terms of a season.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize how many walks he drew.
Yeah, there was one year, like I was doing the Matt Carpenter article, there was one year that Carpenter had 126 walks, or like last year Bryce Harper had like 134, and you know how much Bryce Harper walks, and then Watto had 145 though. It was amazing. For whatever reason, I was living in a cave, so I didn't realize what an arsenal Joey Votto had in terms of just being so patient. And it's such in stark contrast to what he's been like this year, which is just swinging at every pitch, swinging at every ball, and like striking out a lot and not getting any walks. But yeah, he is 18th with a 420 batting average, and the guy that you thought would be on this list is Miguel Cabrera at number 60 with a close to 400. So
still not bad, but
yes,
wow.
Still not bad. Like Mike Trout is right there with those guys as well. So Pujols is also in the same corner. So Joe Mauer as well. So not a bad list of guys to be in. But what surprised me was with all these records, most of them are set by hitters, at least back in the day, like the home run records and the singles and doubles and all those records, like the hits records for Pete Rose was back in the day, and no one's gonna break it.
Yeah.
And then some reason I scrambled onto this list and I see Votto's name at number 18, and so I did a whole career breakdown of what happened to him. And this year has been an anomaly, but the reason I'm bringing his name up to you is he's gonna be in Los Angeles. I think he's going to be in a friendly matchup. Oh, no, that's not a friendly matchup. That's a fucking talking disaster of a matchup. So, again, I wanted to point out that we're not going to be rostering him today, but you may want to look into Joey Votto in the future as long as he's not in Dodger Stadium. When he's in Cincinnati, this is a guy that's going to figure things out for himself pretty soon. And you don't, the price at $3,300, he's probably going to struggle in the Dodger series as well unless something weird happens. So the price is going to keep plummeting. So be sure to keep an eye on Joey Votto because that 420 on base percentage over 10 years is just ridiculous, and he's going to figure it out at some point in this season. So keep a watchful eye on him. Just wanted to point that out because it was astounding to me, and I don't want people to just completely disregard him. But who are your first baseman choices for today?
I think first base is a great place to go relatively cheap. And there's kind of a dual option and then one of my favorite options that I really like. The dual option is either Tommy Joseph or Ryan Howard.
Okay.
The Phillies today are one of, if not my favorite teams to play because they're playing Mike Pelfrey, who is the worst pitcher imaginable.
Yes.
So he's given up like a 430 weighted on base average to lefties and something not far behind to righties. He's getting, I saw lefties have a 380 batting average against him. Batting average.
Yeah.
And it's just insane. But Joseph and Ryan Howard have been splitting time at first. So Howard probably will get the matchup against the righty, but yesterday Joseph got the matchup against the righty, so it's tough to tell. But either one of those is a good option. But my favorite option would probably be Prince Fielder. I really like his price. I like that he's in a hitter's park and that the Rangers are projected for almost 5 whole runs, which is pretty crazy outside of Coors. And Tropiano is not a good pitcher.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think? What are your? And he's also been less than atrocious lately, so it's been solid.
Yes.
What are you thinking?
Whenever I've had Prince Fielder, it's been either for a 0 or a 6 or a 3. So for a long time ago, I was like, he needs to prove himself to me, and I've been keeping an eye on him just the way you have. In the last 3 or 4 games, he has been a little bit more consistent. He's getting a hit for the last 5 games in a row. So he's only 22 away from making another Jackie Bradley Jr. streak on his own. But because he's not on that path yet, I think he does still have something to prove to me until he hits a home run. I feel a little bit weird about rostering him. And Tropiano is one of those guys, like the Angels are somehow figuring things out still. Like I have no idea why them and the Phillies are not at the bottom of the dumpster right now. But those two teams are still on the up and up for whatever reason. So I don't feel as good about Fielder as I do about Ryan Howard in this matchup. That was also a guy that I was looking at, and I want to save some cost here because he is 2,300, and so if you don't mind, I'll roster him. And
that's good.
This kind of convinced me on the Joseph versus Howard debate. Like, is it basically we pick Howard if Joseph is not starting? Is that
one of them will start.
One of them
will hit cleanup.
Okay.
And so whichever one's starting, you put in Howard because he's more expensive. And if he doesn't start, you plug in Joseph.
Okay, cool. So for second base, once it loads up, Matt, do you want to go because it's taking a while to load up?
Sure. Again, there's 2 options that one option that I really like. It's Jason Kipnis, but he's really expensive, and I don't think it's worth paying up for him. I want to bring this up because if you are not playing Kershaw, he's a great play. He's been good. He's facing Eric Johnson, who, again, is not a good pitcher. He's given up 440 weighted on base average to lefties. Kipnis is a good hitter in a good hitter's park, and I really like him today, but I don't think we should play him because he's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Another guy is Rougned. He's not punching any people anymore. I think he's still in the clear for suspension, right?
Yeah.
He should play.
Yeah.
And Tropiano, again, is not a fantastic pitcher. He's been great against righties all season. He probably will lead off because Shin-Soo Choo is back on the DL, so that opens up the lead, or probably about to go back on the DL, so that opens up the leadoff spot, and it's a good situation for him because his price has come down. But again, I don't think we should pay up for him because there are better plays elsewhere.
Yeah.
What do you know? Have you found anyone low that you like?
Yeah, so Tommy La Stella actually kind of stood out to me because against Wainwright, like Wainwright could have one of those weird games where he does really well, but he might not, and also La Stella might not play as well. The guy that I have on my preliminary lineup here at 12 noon is Neil Walker because I think against Gio he can switch up, like he can bat on the right hand side. I don't like betting against Gio Gonzalez for the most part, but Walker at 2,600. I know the recent stats haven't been great, but he is always on thread to hit a home run. Washington, I think that's where the Mets are today. It's a hitter-friendly park. There is chance of rain, so this being a wild card pick, I don't want to spend too much money on Neil Walker. But do you think Walker has kind of like regressed back to the norm for him, which is he showed a ton of power?
Hitter.
Yeah,
he's never been a great hitter. He just kind of turned into a little mini monster for a while. So this is more how I view him.
Yeah, I think when the Mets signed him up and then he started doing well, they're like, we don't need Daniel Murphy. And then Murphy has still kept up the 400 average, and this guy's like regressed back to 250-ish. So I think I'm not set on rostering him. Like I said, against Gio, it's a tough matchup, but the price has dropped a lot, and his home run potential has shown up. But I think that number at the end of the season might not be 40 or 30, but it might just be like 18. Like he might just hit 8 more home runs the rest of the year. So
that seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah, so I think I'm not betting on him hitting a home run today. So my guy actually was going to be Colton Wong, because it's a guy that's a on-base percentage kind of person who can get on base against Lackey. I think he tends to hit at the top of the lineup, so when he does do that, he tends to get on base. When he gets on base, he tends to steal a couple of bases as well. He has a lot of like high on base percentage guys in front of him, like Carpenter, and then he has guys that are below him, like Matt Holliday, driving him in for the run or two. So I doubt that Wong is going to hit a home run. His batting average has been a little bit iffy this year. St. Louis has not really seen him give his best at all this year, I think, but not a bad pick to have at 2,500, I think, and the lefty-righty matchup also helps out. But any matchups at the bottom here, I'm waiting for the lineups to come out, because there's some names down here somewhere that might get a start, and I might look into them given the lineup order that they're in.
Sure. The problem I have with Wong is Lackey, for one, and the fact that he actually hits 8. He hasn't hit above 8 in a while, and that worries me. But two guys that aren't. Again, second base is like catcher. You just have to kind of
tough
deal
it out.
with it.
Yeah.
Cesar Hernandez is fine. Again, anything against Pelfrey is fine. Mm-hmm. He's not a great hitter. He's not even a good hitter, but he's hits for decent average. He actually has stolen base potential.
Yeah.
Brian Dozier's another one. I don't like targeting Kennedy, and that game looks like it might get rained out. Mm-hmm. But there's just. Do you want to come back to second base and kind of plug in based on however much we have left?
Yeah. Who's going up against Cincinnati today? Like, who's the pitcher for Cincy? Is it a lefty?
Finnegan, he's a lefty.
Yeah, so Utley wouldn't be a good option there.
But Howie Kendrick might.
Yeah, Howie Kendrick. That
was kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, because Kendrick, the last time I played him, he batted 4th and he only put up 3 points. But I think today might be a different story given it's the Reds and they can.
Finnegan's just awful. I plan on. Wow, what a game yesterday.
That was because it went into 17 innings.
Yeah, no kidding.
That helped.
8 at-bats. Yeah. Still, though, it's a good sign.
Yeah.
He's old. Hopefully he's not tired and needs a day off.
Yeah, we'll true. So let's put Kendrick in just to have a guy there, but we'll definitely, that's a roster spot that I'm definitely open to changing. So third base is a little bit different for me. The guy that stood out to me was Longoria going up against, I forget the pitchers, Wei and Chen, who is a weirdly doing really bad. He is a high strikeout guy, but he isn't throwing as many this year, so that's promising. And the 4.22 ERA is also not helping matters. So I think Longoria can have some home run potential here. And as we mentioned too, consistency is one of his staples right now, and so definitely a good choice to have. And he hits for power and contact, so that's always helpful. Nick Castellanos was somebody that I always considered just because he hits for a high average, and then he's in Detroit at home today, so hitter-friendly ballpark could be helpful to him. Moustakas, not too convinced by him because he's just getting back from injury, but against Minnesota, you always tend to target those guys, but the game might get rained out, so that's another thing. Valencia against Taijuan Walker. Usually I like Valencia, but not in this matchup. I think it's a little too risky, and he might not go off. Prado hits for contact, and so that's basically it. He has 6 to 9 points out of him every night unless he hits a double. Suarez is a good choice on any other day except the day he faces Clayton Kershaw, which is tonight, so don't do him. David Wright, a game that might get rained out, and is also going to be up against Gio Gonzalez, so not the best of options. Which leads me to my actual choice and suggestion, which is Maikel Franco, who is going to be going up against Mike Pelfrey, who's definitely on slate to allow like 18 runs today.
That's my number one, too.
Yeah, so does it seem wise to stack the Phillies today?
Yep, always against Pelfrey.
Yeah.
Phillies, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, they're still major league hitters.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a major league pitcher.
Right.
So I don't see any reason. I want 3 Phillies. That's how many I want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4 is a little too much, I think, but 3 is the perfect amount. So is the third Philly at shortstop, do you think?
Yep.
Okay. And his name is, because I don't watch the Phillies.
It's the Phillies. Probably.
Philly shortstop. That's his name. Philly shortstop.
Oh, sorry. Holy crap! I'm blank. It's Freddie Galvis.
Okay. Oh, I know
there
that
it is.
guy. Yeah.
But he's cheap. He actually hits switch hit. He's a switch hitter.
Mm-hmm.
He can hit. He hits for more power from the left side of the plate. He's not a good hitter again, but he's cheap and he's facing Pelfrey, and he has shown small power potential with a little bit of speed.
Yeah.
And he hits right in the middle of the order. He's either going to be 5th, 6th, or 2nd. He tends to hit there. And anything in that area is a good spot, especially when you're projected for a large amount of runs like the Phillies are for them against Detroit.
Yeah, and he hit a home run in Atlanta too. So like the power in terms of distance isn't going to be really an issue for him because Atlanta's the tough part to get the ball out of there. So I think Galvis in Detroit, I think, is going to be a good choice against Pelfrey. So I'm going to roster him, and that completes our Philly stack. But any other options at the top end of the shortstop things? But
yeah, there's actually a couple. Rollins is a good option. Rollins hits from both sides of the plate.
Mm-hmm.
I like the White Sox a lot today.
Yeah.
Cleveland's not throwing anyone out. Cody Anderson is a pretty league average, if not below league average pitcher.
Yeah.
And he's pretty old, Rollins, but he still has a little bit of speed, and he still has shown his way that he can be a good hitter.
Yeah.
I don't love him, but he's a pretty safe guy today.
Yeah.
He hits towards the top of the order. He should get on base, get a couple runs scored, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Do you like Brandon Crawford against a righty, I'm assuming?
Lefty.
No,
I don't like Pomeranz.
Yeah, Pomeranz is pretty
pitcher.
good. Yeah.
Showing somehow that he's a great pitcher, and I don't want anything to do with him today.
Yeah. What about Elvis Andrus at 8.4 per game? Because he hit a home run the other day, which was his first of the season, which was impressive to me because he's never hit a home run this year aside from like 2 days ago. But it was in Houston, which is a tough park, I think, in a hole to get out of. But Tropiano at Angel Stadium, do you think this is a good thing?
I like the play. I don't think we have the money to make that play, but I do like the play. I think any part of anything with a Ranger stack today is something I like.
Yeah, and I misspoke earlier. They're actually at Globe Life Park in Arlington. They're not in LA, so this is a great thing. If you are looking for a Texas lineup or stacking them, this is a good day to do that against Tropiano, especially the Texas lefties. Like Mitch Moreland is a lefty as well, so maybe look into him as well. Nomar Mazara too.
That brings me to Nomar Mazara.
Yeah, so good segue because we totally didn't plan that. So as I hunt down Nomar Mazara's name, what do you like about him today?
He's a great righty hitter. He's shown a lot of pop early on. He's hit some home runs. He's an everyday player. He's not one of those guys that he doesn't hit lefties well, but he's not going to be pinch hit for, which is something I look for in cheap outfielders because a lot of guys, if they're kind of a platoon guy, will be pinch hit for late on and miss out on an at bat or two.
Yeah.
He's not one of those guys due to his quality glove. He's playing a pretty rough pitcher, and it's in a hitter's park. I like the Rangers today, and I like him a lot.
Yeah,
he's cheap too. He's underpriced.
Yeah, he's had a couple of 0s and 3s here and there, but that happens to like every hitter, as we always say. And the 6s are actually because he just hit a single the whole time, and it wasn't because he wasn't making contact or anything. So he has been seeing the ball well. I think there's going to be 1 or 2 pitches here from Tropiano today that is going to be delicious for him to hit out of the park. So hopefully that's the case. But if not, then no harm, no foul at 2,900. That's something that we can work around. Do you think you want to go up to the top and maybe target Giancarlo Stanton against Gio Gonzalez? I showed you the stat yesterday about what happens to Gio. Like, he's in the last 17 at bats, and this is from Jason Stark of ESPN. In the last 17 at bats, he struck out 15 times. And against Gio Gonzalez, I don't think that stat is only gonna be looking worse at the end of tonight, which he might strike out all 4 times. So I Giancarlo, as much as I hate to say it, he's become like Prince Fielder. He needs to prove himself to me before I
But
start.
he's not playing Gio.
Is he not? Oh, I
No,
thought he
not
was.
more.
Oh, I for some reason I thought it was Marlins and Washington. Who is Washington playing? The Mets.
Mets.
Okay, for whatever reason I forgot. Matt Moore, it's okay, I think. So do you want to pull the
I like
trigger?
him. I think he has double or triple home run potential
Okay,
with double or triple strikeout potential.
true.
So
Which is
he's
all
a-
in the name of a GPP, right? You take a lot of risk, and that's why we have Clayton Kershaw to offset any
Someone-
zeros.
he's interesting to me. I don't know if I would play him in cash. I probably will. I might.
Hmm.
But what do you think? This one, let's get you your
Well,
opinion.
Well, now that I know he's not facing Gio Gonzalez, this is a much easier decision to make. And actually, in my own lineup, I do have him. I just, for whatever reason, misremembered and thought it was Gio. But yeah, I think the Stanton the Moore matchup was the exact reason why I did have him in mind. And again, in my own lineup, I also have Kershaw, so I had to find quality outfielders for a cheap cost. And Stanton at 3,400 is about as cheap as you get, and about as quality as you can get as well. And if only Colorado was playing today, because I would have jumped on Carlos Gonzalez because he's only at 2,700, and he put up another goose egg yesterday. He went 0 for 4, but that happens, and he's only like $2,700 right now. And for Carlos Gonzalez, he can, yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. But now this leaves us with $2,600. So unless we make a few roster changes up top, any options at the end here? Because
There's two really good ones.
yeah.
Puig and Kike Hernandez. Puig is my favorite option on the day, actually.
Yeah, let's do Puig. Kiki is one of those weird guys where I'm not convinced. I mean, there was that one instance against some guy on the Mets. Was it Mats that he had 2 home runs off of? I forget who the guy was, but yeah, there was one instance when Kiki had a breakout game, but that was like one of, and then 18 games later there was nothing going on with him. Any guy basically that is going to be facing Pelfrey today on the Phillies, you may want to look into. Like, I'll sort it here so you guys can check it out. But
Herrera.
yeah, Odubel Herrera at 3,500. That's a good option. What about Maben, who's had a upsurge kind of 6-game start?
I looked into him, actually. Do you
Yeah.
want to any guesses on his BABIP?
500.
700.
Oh God.
Don't play him.
Yeah, he's gonna be
He's
coming
not a
back
good
down to
hitter. Don't
earth.
play him.
Yeah. No, it's just he's been in the news recently for the home runs and stuff, so I wanted to check out what was going on
He
with him.
can't sustain. I like him. I think he's a good hit. He's a fun player, but they just can't keep up.
Yeah, that BABIP says it all, I think. But I think we have a good lineup. There's a couple of risky picks, like Ryan Howard could have a 0, Puig could have a 0, Stanton could have a 0, but chances are they probably won't because they've had too many zeros to begin with. So we're betting on the side of caution that today's the night that all of those guys break out and we have a decent night. But as we always say, feel free to copy the lineup, but be sure that you're coming up with your own choices, or at the very least, go through the video and like play through what our choices were for first, second, third base, everywhere down. And make sure you're taking every pick into consideration and not blaming us at the end if this roster puts up like 90 points and you wanted 500 out of it, because that's
Kershaw put up 88 of them.
yeah, 88 of the 90 points. So with that said, Matt, do you agree that this is a good roster?
I think so. I really
Okay.
like Puig. Finnegan gives up a lot of contact to righties.
Yeah.
Puig is just starting to finally hit,
Hmm.
and he looked. I watched actually, weirdly enough, 2 of the Dodgers Padres series. He looks comfortable.
Yeah.
And he looks mad. He looks like he's finally wants to start producing, and he's pissed off at himself. But
Yeah.
again, he's shown he's hit 2 home runs in the last 3 or 4 games
Hmm.
in a tough park. So I think he's due for some regression. He's killed lefties on his career.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
like him a
and
lot.
I mean against Finnegan, this is a toss-up. Like I literally think he's gonna do really well. And with Puig, he's one of those guys that there's the range is just limitless. Like he can hit a homer out of any park, just the way
Oh yeah,
Stanton can. So we have two guys who can hit home runs out of any park. We're just waiting for them to do it for once, and
exactly. I
hopefully
mean, look
that
at Puig. He's
yeah.
massive.
Yeah, he is. So, with that said, I think, do you have anything to plug? Articles coming up? You have Robinson Cano coming
I have
up,
a
right?
Robinson Cano article coming up
Yeah,
mid this week, so that'll be an interesting one. Check out the Sports Whorl's website.
yeah. We should
And
probably have it pulled up, but whatever. Also, I have a Matt Carpenter article going up today as well at 5 p.m., I think. So, by the time the video is up, it should be up, hopefully. But yeah, Matt has a Cano article. Yogi will probably have another baseball article topic to be announced later into the week. And last week we had an interesting one as well from Yogi. He wrote about the greatness of Clayton Kershaw, and the funny story from that. I think he sent it to me, and then there's little time on the editing, so I didn't send it back to him, and I just made up a title called The Great One, which is actually from a book about Wayne Gretzky, like a biography about Wayne Gretzky. So if any guy in baseball deserves that title right now, it would be Clayton Kershaw.
Absolutely.
But I thought that Yogi, because I hadn't checked with him, I thought he'd be upset that I said The Great One instead of one of the great ones. And he actually, at the end of the sentence, I wrote, he will be one of the great ones. And Yogi had something like, he is the greatest one. And so Yogi was thinking on the same path that I was, but I was too conservative and didn't want to upset him. And so I said, one of the great ones. And then Yogi's like, no, 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 change it back to the great one. Because he is going to be one of those guys that is, at
I
the
agree.
end of it, in 10, 20 years, we look back and he is going to be the greatest pitcher we've ever seen. So a quality time to watch Clayton Kershaw, and hopefully today is one of those great starts for him as well.
Buy your MLB TV subscriptions. Watch him pitch against the Reds.
Yeah. See you guys.